Hey, good afternoon everybody. Today I'm going to show you what to do with a coconut. Fresh coconuts are getting more and more available, but unless you know how to get one open, they're not much good to you, so I'm going to show you how to do that today. I rarely cook with power tools, but I do need to use one today. Now, if you don't happen to have a drill, you could just get into the holes on the coconut using a hammer and nail. If you are going to use a hammer and nail, you will need somebody to hold the coconut for you and trust you that you're not going to smack them. But if you're using the drill like I am, you're quite fine to do it yourself. I use the largest bore. I find it a lot quicker. So preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit while you're getting your coconut ready. I would do this very carefully and with your hand safely away. Now as you drill, you want to have the dust go into the pan because you don't want it in your coconut milk if you are going to use that after. You're not required to, but some people do like it. Okay, we have coconut. So second one. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, when you're picking on up, I probably shouldn't do this now. It's like, you know those cans that say shake well? Yeah, keep the lid on before you do that. So I'll put my finger over, and you can hear that there's lots of milk inside. Okay, so let's just do the second hole now. So now that we're through coconut, the two holes is to get air in so you can pour the milk out. Which I will do right now. I'm using a canning funnel to just not make a mess. And surprisingly, there was very little shell that went into there. So once your oven is hot, put the coconut back in the pan and pop that in the oven for 15 minutes. Time's up. Now you'll notice I got my kitchen fan on because I didn't want to take any chances that the fibers on the coconut would smoke and set off my fire alarm. So let's see where we are with this. No. And you can see that it had its desired effect, and I haven't even whacked it yet. Do you see the shell crack in there? Which is what you want. So I'm going to move this to a cutting board. And I'm definitely using an oven mitt for this because it's hot. And just whack it with a mallet, or if you've got a hammer, that's good too. Let me try the Well, I went caveman on it, and it cracked it in half. So at this point, yeah, it's a little too hot to touch. It smells sweet. That's really important. I did taste the juice, and the juice was fine. It was nice and sweet and fresh, but if for whatever reason you have a bad coconut, you should taste it first. Just get a little bit of the meat off with a fork or something. And just taste that and see if it's good. That's quite nice. The meat tenderizer was just not cutting it, so I did get out my hammer and cleaned it, but considering it's generally not a kitchen tool, it did work here. I fended some in, so I'm going to cover it with a paper towel first. There. So as you can see, the meat is coming away from the shell. And I'm hoping that as that cools down, that's going to get a little easier to do. It's coming along pretty well. One thing I should point out, yeah, as you're going to have to rinse all this after. If the hammer is not working for you with some pieces, instead of beating them till they fly all around the kitchen, if you get a fork and you get in there a little bit, you should be able to pry away the meat from the shell. Like that. And once you get the fork in between, it just, I won't say completely easily, but it does peel away. And there you have your coconut without the shell. Oh, that just popped off nice, didn't it? This is definitely not for people with fussy kitchens, as you can see. Well, that's done, and so now I can put the hammer back in the garage. These are, the shells just go in the garbage. I don't think they can even compost. They're a little too hard. Now, what to do with this now? First thing to do, clean up your work area, then give this a rinse. Oh, and if you missed my earlier caution, don't use your best cutting board for this. I got an old beat up one here, I'll show you. They can cut the edges of the coconuts are quite sharp and can cut gouges in your cutting board, so I always use an old beat up one. Don't use your best fanciest one. Get yourself a peeler and a small knife and a second bowl. Now, there's going to be two kinds of pieces. You're going to have large pieces like this and small pieces like that, okay? For the small pieces, just get your knife and cut it again. These are quite soft, and just cut the brown part off, obviously without cutting yourself. And for the larger pieces, just very carefully peel that. And when I say carefully, I do mean it, because these can break pretty easily, and depending on how fresh and fragile your coconut is, let me get a larger piece and see if the biggest one goes best. Yeah, that's working quite nice on the big pieces, but the ones that are going to break, I would definitely just use the paring knife and trim them. And I'm all done. There's still a couple little bits of brown on some of the pieces, but honestly it doesn't really matter, most of it's off. The impatient will have gone to the store by now. But seriously, it's like any of the finer things in life, you know. It really is worth the work. If you have never tasted fresh peeled coconut like this, no, store-bought does not stand up next to it. Anyways, if you're willing to do a little bit of work and maybe wreck an old cutting board, I strongly advise you to give this a shot. And this is what you do with the coconut.